Welcome again, friends. So, moving on to the part 2 of the same video about Indian economy on the eve of independence. This is our part 2 of the video that I have shared earlier, where we discuss the remaining topics of chapter number 1. So first of all, we'll talk about the demographic conditions of our country at the time of independence. When we talk about demographic conditions, we are talking about the general living conditions of the people, where we take upon certain aspects which tells us about the condition of the people, which include various aspects like birth rate, death rate, mortality rate, infant mortality rate, literacy level, all those features. So talking about the various indicators of demographic conditions, the first of all we'll talk about the birth rate and the death rate. Birth rate, as you people might be knowing, it is the number of birth per 1,000 people in a population, and similar death rates are number of death in 1,000 people of a population. So during the independence, or at the time of independence, our birth rate was also high. It was nearly 48 per 1,000. This was due to lack of knowledge about the family planning and due to many other superstitious activities in our economy. Similarly, the death rate at that time was also quite high at 40 per 1,000. This was due to lack of medical facilities and people dying due to even very small diseases like cholera, malaria, typhoid, tuberculosis, etc. So even the death rate was very high. So as you can see, the death rate as well as the birth rate both were very high. Birth rate at the time of independence, during the time of independence, was 48 persons per 1,000, and death rate was also 40 per 1,000. So both the birth rate and death rate were high. That's why there was not much increase in the population till the independence time. Coming on to the second part, infant mortality rate. Over here, infant mortality rate means the children who have born and their chance of survival to reach up till age of 1. If any newborn baby dies before attaining the age of 1 year, that is called as infant mortality rate. This is also measured per 1,000 live births, means how many children are able to survive up till the attaining of age of 1 year. So even the infant mortality rate was quite alarming. That was 218 persons or 218 children per 1,000 live births. That means 218 children used to die before attaining the age of 1 year. That was again due to poor medical facilities and lack of healthcare facilities available to the people. Moving on to the next one, literacy rate. It is really very shocking to see that due to lack of institution, lack of schooling and lack of awareness about the education, the literacy rate in our country on the eve of independence was very less. That was hardly less than 16% at the time of independence. You can see the data, it was less than 16% literate people were found in India. And when we look at another aspect of the literacy rate, the female literacy rate, hardly 7%, just 7% of the females in India were literate at the time of independence. So this is very shocking, and that is the reason why we have such a high birth rate also in India. So literacy level, people were not very much aware about the various things happening around the world and about the various other things. So literacy rate was very low. Talking about the next topic, life expectancy. Life expectancy means the chance of a person to survive or to live after birth. So today, because of the medical facilities and various health expenditures by the government and awareness among the people, people live for a longer time period. But at that time, the life expectancy was hardly 32 years. Means people on an average live only for 32 years. This is the average that we are taking. So this is also quite alarming. Again, it shows the lack of health infrastructure in our country, and because nothing was done for that, due to that, the life expectancy was also quite poor. So over here we are talking about the same thing. Poor state of health facilities were there. There were hardly, most of the people were not having the healthcare facilities at their nearest places. That means the healthcare facilities were either inadequate, or if even available, they were not sufficient to meet the health care of the people, and even the people used to die because of the water and airborne diseases. The death of the people and diseases among the people which are water and airborne are very common at the time of independence. Means again pointing out to the same thing, that health part or health expenditure facilities were not good. Widespread poverty. Though we do not have a perfect data regarding how much percentage of population at that time was living below poverty line, but according to the surveys that were conducted by the different people and different organizations, it is quite clear that rampant poverty was there. Large population was living below poverty line, and they were unable to fulfill their basic bare minimum necessities of life. So this again points out that the demographic condition was very poor during the British rule, and they had not done much to improve all these conditions. So high birth rate, high death rate, high infant mortality rate, literacy level was very low. Among female, it was really a thing to be worried about. Life expectancy much below than 50% of what we are having today. State of health facilities very poor. There were no facilities of X-rays, and your laboratories were not there, so people were not able to get cured by the diseases that were suffering from. Coming to the occupation structure, when we talk about the occupation structure, we are talking about the percentage of population that are dependent on the various sectors of the economy. In my previous video, I have already told you regarding this, and again we are discussing the same topic. Agriculture sector was contributing 70 to 75% of the labor force. That means 70 to 75% of the people were dependent on the agriculture sector for their livelihood, whereas industry contributed only 10%. This was the basic reason that why our economy was in a very pathetic condition. And service sector, the tertiary sector where we talk about, that contributed hardly 10 to 15% of the total occupation of the people. So highest was of the agriculture sector. Even there are regional variations. At that time, regional variations were there. Some states in India, they have reduced their dependency on agriculture. That means they have moved from agriculture to either industrial sector or the service sector. And on the other hand side, we have various examples of other states where the percentage of population has shifted towards agriculture sector, and they have got overburdened on the agriculture sector. And over here, when I talk about the overburdening means there was disguised unemployment in agriculture sector. Much more people were working than required on the agriculture sector. So there were regional variations also in the occupational structure. Basically the area of Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, over here more people were dependent, and they were increasing on the agriculture sector. On some other states they were decreasing in number, and they are shifting to the other sector. Talking infrastructure, that we have discussed a bit in our previous lecture also. Infrastructure, roadways were developed by the Britishers, that were all season roads which were earlier lacking in the village areas, but now the roads were available, all season roads were developed in certain areas for mobilizing the army, for transporting the raw material to the ports, and for again bringing the ready-made material or the finished goods from ports and railway stations to the areas. Railways, as discussed, railways were also being improved and it was introduced in 1850. But again, the purposes were different: for the quick movement of the army, for transportation of the heavy goods, and for quick transportation of goods and services. For the benefit of the Britishers, it was being done. Air and water transport was also being developed. Air transport was not much developed, but water transport, for that, because we have a very long coastline, and because of the peninsular shape of India, our water transport was quite interesting for the Britishers, and that's why many ports were being developed in India, and that are still being used in India for the transportation to and from abroad. Communication, in the parts of communication at that time, communication was mainly done through the post offices. So postal services were also introduced by the Britishers, and even the telegraph services were started by Britishers only. So the credit for these services goes to them, but again we should keep in mind that most of the services were done for their benefit rather than benefiting the people of India. We were discussing the various things about the positive impact. Over here we will talk about all these things. There's a positive impact of Britishers also. Apart from that, Britishers has introduced commercialization, no doubt. Commercialization was done mainly for getting more income for the Britishers. But on the other side, after independence, we got benefited from that. Law and order, as I told you, they brought a single law system for the Indian people. And apart from that, they are also responsible for giving us the better infrastructure facilities that we learned from them. So there was also positive contribution of the Britishers to the India. So our first part has talked about